Order. This is the Tuesday, April 6, 2021 meeting for the Livingston Parish Ordinance Committee. Would you call roll, please?
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Talbot.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Earlhouse.
Here. Item 2, new business. Review and discussion and recommendation of ordinances. Ordinances. A, discussion of Chapter 58, roads and drainage, Section 14, excavating or damaged roads, etc. Mr. Sam, y'all on this?
Yeah, basically, if y'all look, Lauren, if I remember correctly, the blue stuff we're adding and the red stuff we're striking.
Yes, blue stuff we're adding, red stuff needs to be changed to whoever you want to oversee. Right now, it's Mr. Sam, but it's just for community purposes, you need to designate someone.
Did he say?
I got you without first obtaining approval.
Director of DPW.
Yep.
Director of DPW will be substituted where it says permit of roads, bridge commission, so that'll all be director of DPW.
Which permits said committee or its designee is hereby authorized to grant at a reasonable discretion.
I just think said committee or its designee needs to be scratched.
Yeah.
And then everywhere it says permit of the road and bridge committee of the parish council needs to be director of DPW. And then we're adding, basically, we're hauling on multiple heavy loads of timber, dirt, gravel, or any other material or equipment without first obtaining. Basically what it amounts to is sometimes somebody will put a dirt pit in and, they might have 1,000 loads coming out of there on the road. And so they want to be able to, when that happens, make them first obtain a permit from the director of DPW before they do it.
Does it need to say obtaining an approval and a permit? Or are we sure we're gonna do it?
No, I think we're just gonna do approval. So you've got to get approval from the director of DPW.
Which is
So
permitting
basically-
you to do it.
So basically, the motion is gonna be on A, to add the blue writing, and then where it says permit of the road or bridge committee of the parish council will be stricken to say director of DPW, and then which permit is here authorized to grant at a reasonable discretion. Said committee or its designees to be stricken. And then on B and D, where it talks about the road and bridge committee of the parish, will input director of DPW. So that's the motion.
Yeah.
Do we have a?
We have a second?
Yes.
Second by Mr. King. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
That's pretty simple.
As ordered.
Okay. We had talked about that way back.
I'm sorry, did anybody, not lucky enough to have anybody here want to talk about that?
Nobody want to talk about that.
Item 3, old business review and discussion and recommendation of ordinances. A, discussion of Chapter 42, Article 11, Obscenity materials. Okay, so just a brief synopsis on this. The obscenity ordinance as it is written now was we were informed by council at the time that it was brought before the parish that in his opinion, he's assistant to district attorney, that this ordinance as written is not enforceable. It's too vague. Essentially, it just says if it's obscene, you can't do it. And according to our legal counsel, that will not hold water. Basically, it's so strict that it's so vague, it's unenforceable. So we hereby have to amend it to make it enforceable. So, guys, anything else on that?
Well, Ms. White printed out state law. And this is the revised statute that the state has. And it's not as wordy as ours. And there is a section E that says, this section does not preempt nor shall anything in this section be construed as a preempt. The regulation of obscenity by municipalities, parish, and consolidated city parish governments. However, in order to promote uniform obscenity legislation throughout the state, the regulation of obscenity by municipalities, parishes, and consolidated city governments shall not exceed the scope of the regulatory prohibitions contained in the provisions of this section. So in reading that and looking at the state revised statute, I'm not wondering, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, I would have to just explain it.
I was wondering if we wouldn't be better served, since the state's got a attorney general that's, you know, defending their laws, if we wouldn't be better served to mirror state law on this thing, and then about the only thing that would probably need to do different is, as we talked about earlier, is to put some distance prohibitions in there, and I don't think that would be construed as exceeding the scope, because there is some distance stuff in the state law. So, Ms. White, you've done a lot of research on this. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, so I did not work on this ordinance last week. I came in today and kind of started looking at it, and I found the state law that our ordinance basically mimics. Our ordinance does have some stricter restrictions. The wording's kind of fuzzy, whatever. So I started looking into it, and the document that y'all have has some stuff underlined, starred, whatever, you can kind of see. The third page that you guys have, not front back, is the 14106.1. That is the promotion and wholesale, promotion of obscene devices. That is where state law basically says, like, you can't have an adult novelty store or whatever. That law was ruled unconstitutional in 2000, in May of 2000.
So 14-106-1 is unconstitutional?
Well, no, it was ruled unconstitutional in May of 2000, but it is still on our books. And I spoke with the Attorney General today, and my understanding after my conversation with them is that once a law is deemed unconstitutional, it isn't wiped from the books unless a legislative rep brings it to session. Also, a law can be amended and no longer be unconstitutional. So just because it's deemed unconstitutional doesn't mean that it can't be tweaked just a little bit and still be good. So this revised statute is also a criminal law, which again, to my understanding, can only be fought or deemed unconstitutional if someone is charged. And to my knowledge, it has not been tried again in the courts. But this law, 106.1, was amended in 2001. So right now, the question that I have is it unconstitutional or is it constitutional? Which an attorney can give us an opinion, but the Attorney General, they don't even know. Because it hasn't been tried, because no one has been. So the law prior to the amendment in 2001 was deemed unconstitutional. The legislature amended the law in 2001, and it has not been challenged since. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So I can't tell you that if it's unconstitutional or not, but I can tell you that it is on the books.
So the question we had from Mr. Moody that we challenged him with to tell us what portions of our laws he felt was not defensible because they weren't constitutional. We did not get a response on that at this time.
So I emailed them this morning, and everything that I emailed y'all, and I just said, if we repeal certain sections of the obscenity ordinance for them to match state law, like if we just take them out and we let state law deal with it, and we put restrictions on the location and the signs that were discussed in the previous ordinance meetings, can we add language that states we are following state law or we are to follow state law and refer back to 14:106, just to clean up the ordinances or whatever. And this was the response I got back from Brad Cassio. It says, good morning. As long as the language matches the state statute, I do not find it necessary to state that it does. But I also do not see the harm in adding something along those lines. The parish definitely needs to repeal the language that goes beyond that of state law.
Okay, so did Mr. Cassio did not tell
Actually
us.
goes through and straight through it, no. That's what I tried
So-
to do, but the wording was so, it was in so many different sections.
Okay,
that
so how do we as a council, in theory, the parish attorney represents the parish president, the council, everything. How do we get the parish attorney to go through our current law and strike the portions that he deems not defensible based on Supreme Court rulings on those questions that you have to fail to?
Maybe we just task him to do it.
Well, I mean, we basically.
Oh, we did that.
We did it at the last ordinance committee meeting, and we haven't gotten a response to that yet, so.
Do you guys have this in front of you? I don't know if I really know how to get it.
I mean, the only thing that they've basically done is sent us a tangible hoe ordinance. I mean, Chris emailed us a tangible hoe ordinance, and so, I mean, I'm not sure that,
They were challenged on several things in the
Yeah.
past.
I didn't give y'all this, but I went through our ordinance and kind of wrote where,
Is that the one we went through the other day and?
yes,
Me and
and
you
then I
went through.
actually referenced it to
Mhm.
state law, yeah. So, like the different things, I think Sadie wrote this way back when, but, like there were just some different questions about the minors and stuff, and I mean, it's all outlined in
In state
the
law?
state law.
Okay.
So if
So
you
you
want
pretty much can come up with what needs to be strict.
well, you know, she can tell what parts we have that mirror state law, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the
We can
parts are,
strike
That
out.
don't,
that the
Or-
part don't, or an overreach. I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
an
yeah, no, I
attorney,
get
so
that.
consequently, I can't tell you, based on what the Supreme Court ruled, what is or isn't defensible. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
I mean, an attorney really needs to go through the thing and tell us what parts,
But according to the Attorney General, all of this they would defend this state law.
the state law.
Yeah.
So we either trash ours completely and adopt theirs as written,
Or we just trash ours completely and let the Attorney General
Reference-
handle any.
reference the
Reference
state
state
law
law.
on the whole deal.
Yeah.
or we could,
But that,
we
but
can
that,
adjust, we can pick up the state law, and we could add stuff that necessarily would.
well, it says straight up though.
Well, no, it says the scope. It doesn't,
Yeah.
I think,
That's
so
what I'm
I think the
saying.
question is, you know, it says municipalities, parishes, and consolidated city parish governments shall not exceed the scope of the regulatory prohibitions contained in the provisions of this section. So is putting a distance requirement or a zoning requirement for a particular facility
Exceeding the scope.
exceeding the scope, and or is changing a definition or adding something that you don't want in your community exceeding the scope? I mean, I would think that would be exceeding the scope. I'm not sure zoning or distance requirements from
Exceed anything,
certain facilities or
Well,
homes
it
or
lists all the
whatever.
churches and all that in here, churches, schools, different.
Well, but that's with respect to,
Sexually explicit things. Yeah? Graphic
Well-
depiction.
well, but there's another section that talks about.
But it also shows in public
It-
things
well,
like
it
that.
talks when an act of obscenity is defined in the parish, or in the paragraph. Law enforcement, if they determine that, then the law enforcement agency is responsible for notifying any principal or headmaster in any school located within 2,000 feet of the said violation. So, I mean, that's related to,
Perverts messing around in
well,
school.
it's related to
It's-
whatever,
that's what it
some
means.
act is defined as obscenity in here. What it doesn't deal with, though, is like retail or wholesale establishments, whether, or nightclubs.
Does it list that in all in state law? You read it.
Yeah, well, that's what
Where's
she
it
was
at?
saying, the 14106-1.1
Yeah.
it deals with obscene devices, which is the
Oh,
lion's
yeah, right,
share of
okay.
what's going on at retail establishment, novelty shops. So, in essence,
Well,
it addresses it, and by definition, it really kind of mimics what our ordinance says. And so, I don't know, I mean, technically, they amended what was determined to be unconstitutional, and whether it's not been enforced, or whether
Right.
nobody's challenged it, if the state's not enforcing this provision, then it's never gonna be challenged, so you won't know if it's unconstitutional or not.
Well, yeah, read the rest of that. I mean, it says obtaining to sell,
You can't get it mailed to your house.
can't get it mailed to your house and everything. So that's gonna be the part that's unconstitutional,
Well-
because there's no way they could do that.
So look, I know there's a lot of people here that wanna speak, and, I mean, you the chairman, we probably all let them speak, but,
Yeah,
look, we can talk for days
And
about
we
what
can't
ought
do
to do.
anything until we get our
But
answers.
I just think we need to challenge our parish attorney to go through our existing ordinance and basically line item.
So another thing that the Attorney General and I talked about today, or one of the Attorney General people in the office, was that this is a criminal law. And do you want to mimic a criminal law? That, I don't exactly know how it's
Well, I think
structured
ours is a
in the
criminal
state
law, too.
constitution and all of that, but she did make mention of this being a criminal law. I don't know if that's something that y'all want.
Well, I mean, typically, if it is not a criminal law and we're talking about like zoning issues, then they could be enforced at a different level, meaning it didn't have to go to court, that probably the director of planning or something like that could take action, or,
Because I think the difference that she was trying to tell me is that like civil stuff, that a lot of stuff you can be sued through like a civil court, and then with criminal stuff, it's the stuff that you can't fight until you go to court.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
charged with it. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
Okay.
because-
I mean, look,
So let's get that,
I'll be.
that's gotta be done.
I wish that we could keep what we have.
Yeah.
well,
I mean, I'm just saying, I wish we could
I
keep
mean, I
what we have.
understand, but we've been told that.
It might make life easier.
Well, I mean, I
guess,
wish,
yeah.
I have no problem with the strictness of it, except for the fact that it's so vague that you can't defend it, and that's a problem.
Because anybody can pull out one little thing and, yeah.
Yeah, and, but I don't really have a problem with the way, other than that major problem, it's not like, I can speak for myself, not like we're trying to make it easier,
No.
because we're not.
No,
But, you guys,
no, I think you're correct.
I mean, look,
who wants to speak first?
wait.
Come on up, sir.
But I just think ultimately, when this thing is over today, we as a committee the recommendation needs to challenge the parish attorney to go through this ordinance and identify what's not constitutional.
Absolutely, I
And then, I
agree.
mean, we gotta get that before we get started. We gotta
Yeah.
figure out what's not constitutional, so we know what we can and can't keep. And then we need to expound upon that with.
It doesn't do any good to introduce a
Sure.
law that's already
And
got
really, I brought it up
unconstitutional
because I
things.
knew that people wanted to speak.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Well, we knew
also
this
wanted
was
to
gonna be a
explain our
process.
side too. In no way are we trying to make this easier. We're just trying to make it enforceable. So, could you give us your name and address, sir?
My name is Kevin Michael Paninsky. I reside at 21460 LA Highway 16, Livingston Parish.
All right, the floor is yours.
I'm a registered voter here and a member of the community for 22 years. I'm also a minister at South Walker Baptist Church. I'm the recovery pastor for that church, and concerned citizens have asked me to speak in their behalf. Now, I would like to know more about the state law. The only thing that I had at my disposal was the ordinance itself, and the statement that it was vague. Let's see, how was it put? And broad in wording. I don't understand that part at all because it seems pretty specific. The beginning of the ordinance goes on with definitions, and then after that, the exact parts of the law. The parts that I'm concerned about, basically, it says obscene means that which the average person applying contemporary community standards in the parish would find taken as a whole. And it goes on from that to say, number one, appeals to the purest interest, purest meaning marked by arousing and/or immoderate or unwholesome interest or desire marked by arousing or appealing to sexual desire. And I don't believe that the people in the community really do want that, and I think that should be there. Also, it says, which portrays, represents, and depicts, describes ultimate sexual acts, normal, perverted, all this. And number 3 was down as taken as a whole, does not have serious artistic or literary or political or scientific value. I don't find any value in having this in our community. The laws itself, it says here, section 42-530. No, that's not it. The one below it. Well, it's what it says is it's unlawful for any person to knowingly permit or authorize the public display of any obscene items, explicit sexual material, or material depicting nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, or sodomistic abuse. It also says it is unlawful for persons knowingly to fail to promptly remove from public display from property in his possession under his control any explicit sexual material, obscene items, or material that depicts nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, and sodomistic abuse. Now, I don't know where changing the wording of this law would help our community at all. If a change in the wording of this law would allow people to go ahead and keep it on their computers and stuff like that, things that we know that people are being put to jail for, you know, especially when it comes to, you were talking about the children and stuff like that, and I believe our interest as a community more than anything else and in our church is to protect the children. I deal with people on a regular basis that are affected from their youth by this sort of thing, okay, that I have to deal with on a regular basis to try to help. You know, people that have sexual addictions and relationship issues. And that's what I do at my church and in my service. And to try to promote any more of that would be awful. I don't think the idea of having it within it's within about 100 yards of the public library, and which I have a picture of here. You can see there's where the library ends, and that's where the sign is. It's just, I mean, it's literally less than a football field away. And then directly next door to it, they're building a brand new community, a community that I assure you is going to be full of young families. And if there's things that need to be changed to this law, I don't believe that it would be so that it would be less enforceable. I'm hoping that this committee, for moral reasons and as far as revenue is concerned, I think that this in our community will lower the value of these properties and make them hard to sell and hurt the community as a whole.
Well, Pastor Kevin, I don't think anyone on the council disagrees that we don't want any of this here. But our legal advisor, the night that it was presented, is an assistant district attorney. And he said that if it was brought to him to enforce that as it was written, he said he sat right there and said, I would throw this out. I could not defend this because of the way it is written.
I thought it was pretty specific that I mean.
Well, he's the attorney. I mean, he's an ADA, and you know, we have to kind of yield to his knowledge in this. I mean, nobody on the council wants any of those things you're saying. But we have to craft a law that is enforceable, to where if the district attorney is not going to enforce it, and he's the one in the 21st Judicial who's going to do the enforcing. I mean, he is literally the guy, or one of them. Nobody on the council wants to make it easier for these things, for this type of business to be here. And at least I don't, and I'm fairly certain these gentlemen don't either. But we're tasked to create a law that they can take and enforce for us. And I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, if I could enforce the law as it is right now, I wouldn't change a thing. And that would be the way it would be, but you know, in his knowledge, he just sat there, and we have to defer to what, and we're gonna have our attorney look at the same thing, and he might say something different, but according to him, he said, if this came before me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he basically said, if this came before me, I would throw this out because I could not defend this.
He said I could not, that's what he said.
Could not defend this. So nobody here wants to change it. Nobody here wants any of these type of places to come. At least I'll say for myself, I know I don't. Absolutely don't. And it's, you know, it's fairly close to my house. But we have to craft a law that is enforceable. And even if it's, you know, you can't do it, you know, we can make it almost impossible to do. If we had, you know, in that regard, if we had zoning, we could just give it a zoning designation and then not have that zoning designation. You know, it's trickery, you know, but I don't think anybody here wants this type of stuff in our community. I mean, I've lived here every minute of my life.
Well, I think what we want, Pastor, what we're trying to do, these things are coming to our community. They need to be, just like we said, cannot see anything outside that store. It is a private business. It's not in public view. That's the part that, where it says public view, there's no public view. The signage is grandfathered in because of the fact that they're permitted. We can't stop this store, whether we want to or not. And some of the other the things that all pertain to children, absolutely, that's good. I mean, it's even in the state law that we protect the children from graphic, you know, visual aids and all these things. These types of stores are everywhere in the whole country. They're on every internet. They're on every thing. They pop up.
Well,
What we can try and do is craft a law so if these types of businesses do things that are not legal, then someone can go after them.
And
With this law, we can't go after anybody.
Where you couldn't have a sign, you couldn't
For
have
your business.
any art at all. If it was the name of your business, just the name,
And that's
no art.
And we
And-
agreed, I think, on
And so
that.
that's going to be the case. But you know, we have to be able to give the district attorney's office
Some
something
teeth.
that they can
Yeah.
enforce.
Yeah.
Because according to them, even though I don't like it, he said it, he cannot defend this. Now, there are parts of it he probably can, but that's what we need to task our attorney to go, what can he not defend so
Yeah.
we can word in a way that is defensible?
Well, look, Chris sent an email to me, and it talked about constitutional obscenity laws. And basically, the Supreme Court established a test that judges and juries use to determine the matters obscene. The main one being Miller versus California, also Smith versus United States, and Pope versus Illinois. And there were three questions that you had to fail. You had to satisfy the three-pronged test, you know, basically. So the first one was that whether the average person applying contemporary adult community standard finds that the matter taken as a whole appeals to the period interest, i.e. an erotic, lascivious, abnormal, unhealthy, degrading, shameful, or morbid interest in nudity, sex, or excretion. Two, whether the average person applying contemporary adult community standard finds that the matter depicts or describe sexual content in a patently offensive way, i.e. ultimate sexual act, normal or perverted, actual or simulated, masturbation, excretory functions, lewd exhibition of genitals, and sadomasochistic sexual abuse. And the third part is whether a reasonable person finds that the matter taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, or political or scientific value. So if it's a nude art painting, then it doesn't, it's supposedly under the Supreme Court test that it's okay. And so it would fail that leg of the test, and so consequently it wouldn't be determined obscene. That's the definition. Now, how to apply that to our ordinance, I'm not a legal scholar, I don't know how to do that. But basically those are the three things that you have to satisfy for the Supreme Court to determine that it, based on their rulings, that it is obscene. And so all we can do as a council is try to have our attorney direct us that whatever we have in here meets the standards set forth by the Supreme Court, because if we don't do that, then it's not going to be enforceable. So that's what we're struggling to do. Look, I just soon left the ordinance exactly like it is. We've been told it's not enforceable, so it's worthless. So in essence, what we're trying to figure out and is what part of this ordinance meets this standard and what part of this ordinance doesn't, and then try to craft this ordinance in such a manner that it meets the standard and protects the community to the best of our ability. I noted in Chris's email that distributing obscenity, whether it crosses state lines or through the mail or whatever, is a crime. However, a private individual possessing obscene matter is not criminalized. But when you get to minors, then it's a different standard. And so anything with respect to a minor, whether you possess or whatever, becomes a criminal act. So, I mean, all we're trying to do is put forth a law, because basically the law that's on the books now ought not be there, because as soon as we try to, or the sheriff or somebody tries to apply it, it's going to be thrown out. So what we're trying to do is construct a law that at least has some teeth, so that there is some worth to having the law on the books.
In the meantime, the other been speaking about a variance. In the meetings from the last, the notes from the last meeting said that Mr. Cassio advised that if you wish to grant a variance, then the council needs to be specific on the variance as to why this particular instance would be different if someone else requested a variance. And then it went on to talk about, actually putting a strip joint across the street from a church. We, as a community, are concerned about it being opened and having to deal with it later. So, are you going to be allowing this business to open as it is? Or are we waiting on that until after something is done about the ordinance or changes are made?
So in essence, right now, we have an ordinance that is unenforceable. So technically, so says, and so I think based on the what our attorney tells us, that this ordinance a lot of it doesn't meet the standard. Some of the things that this facility might sell, doesn't meet standard. Nowhere in this ordinance does it define distance, in our ordinance, the one that we have on the books. So consequently, because of that, a permit was issued. Now, no variance was granted to them because they had a legal permit, and opening that business technically wasn't a crime. When they start selling the stuff, it becomes a crime, as I interpret the way the ordinance is written. And that falls upon the jurisdiction of the sheriff's office and the district attorney, how they handle that. And so, you know, what we're trying to do is put forth an ordinance that could possibly let us, on a civil matter, address it through planning. Now, I'm gonna read a footnote at the bottom of this thing that Chris sent us. He said, see the article for a much more detailed discussion of what you can restrict and how. Distance from residences, distance from residences have been rejected as being narrowly drawn. Zoning restrictions have been the most successful way to control locations of these businesses. So the problem we have in this parish is without zoning, the most effective way to control where they go doesn't exist. So we've got to work around what has been stricken in the past as being narrow or arbitrary to try to create a situation. So in essence, we can protect schools, libraries, playgrounds, those types of facilities. And it's not a narrowly drawn ordinance, and it creates a particular, you know, group of people that we're trying to protect. However, but just to tie it to a residence, from what I read on this law, which I hadn't read the last time I ran my mouth, in this court, I mean, in this chamber or on the radio, is that where we wanted to try to restrict with respect to residential rooftops probably is not feasible. So we're going to have to regroup and look at what is acceptable, meaning schools, playgrounds, churches, synagogues, that type of thing. So we know how to do some restrictions, but what we're trying to get right now is what part of this is not acceptable. Then we can identify the not acceptable part, strike it, yet tie it to a distance, you know, from certain facilities that the Supreme Court has said you can restrict from. You can't just say a house because they say it's too narrowly drawn, and so you've got to identify where there is a problem, meaning schools, playgrounds, libraries, where, you know, people can be adversely affected, so to speak. But look, I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I was raised a preacher's kid, and every time the doors open, I was there. I darkened, you know, every time the doors open, preacher's kids were at the church because Daddy was there. And so, look, I understand the community standard. I understand the concern of what's going on in the community, and that's why we have tried to take this matter up in such a manner to create an ordinance that can be as restrictive as possible, yet still pass the muster if it's challenged. And so I think we're on the same side. I just think that you know, we're not attorneys, and we're at the discretion of certain individuals. And if there's an attorney out there that, you know, that wants to volunteer helping us write this ordinance and can help us justify what parts of this fall within the, you know, the three-pronged test that the Supreme Court's established, we're more than open to have you come testify before us or email us a written out ordinance and tell us that, you know, why it works. And I think this committee would be glad to move forward along those lines. But I mean, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for guidance because, well, I mean, and we had talked about that today. I mean, that's what we need. I mean, we need, look, I got my degree at the University of Hard Knocks, and so they don't have a University of Hard Knocks law degree. So, I mean, I'm waiting for a lawyer to come help me figure out what we need.
Because we could write anything, but it still wouldn't.
Is the state's law enforceable?
The state's law?
The state's ordinance on this
Except for the
particular
parts that
zone?
are-
Wait a second. Let's
Yeah,
come on up. Well, are you through?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Thank you, sir. I
As-
appreciate you coming.
as I understand.
My name's John Wyatt.
Address.
I live at 8736 Lockhart Road in Denham Springs.
Okay.
And I'm also a friend of Kevin's. I'm one of the youth leaders at the Landing, which is the recovery unit at the church where we go. But I'm just wondering, is this state's ordinance on this particular subject, is it enforceable?
Well-
How does it read? Because none of us know.
Okay, and this is the information that we've gathered. The state ordinance is a criminal ordinance, so it's about criminal penalties that are that are, you know, people are arrested, tickets are written, they're prosecuted in a criminal court. In 2000, certain sections of state law were deemed unconstitutional. The year later, they were amended. However, since 2001, that part that was amended, no
one's
law
challenged.
enforcement agency has done anything with that amended ordinance or with that amended statute. And on criminal law cannot be challenged in court until someone is arrested and then, you know, prosecuted because of it.
So there's no way to tell whether
We
it
don't
is or
know.
not.
That's the question, is the state has this law on the books, but until they utilize it to arrest somebody and it's challenged, they have no way of determining whether it's constitutional or not. So, you know, what we thought we might be able to do prior to Ms. White's discussion with an assistant state's attorney today, that we thought we could mirror state law and move forward, and now we found out that the state would be willing to defend their law if it came up, but it has not been challenged because ultimately it looks like that the law enforcement agencies within the state are not utilizing the law and challenging those situations. For example, now don't take this personal because it's not an attack on anybody. According to state law, some of the products sold at Frenzies would be illegal. However, it doesn't look like the state police or anybody within the state is utilizing that law to go arrest or issue a misdemeanor summons or whatever with those individuals. So if there's no criminal prosecution with respect to that revised statute, then there's no way to challenge that revised statute and find out if it's constitutional other than some legal mind reading it and seeing if it meets the three-pronged approach set by the Supreme Court. And then, of course, depending on whether you have a blue tilt or a red tilt, your interpretation of, you know, what the community standard is could be different. And so it's ironic that the law is supposed to be black and white, but some of this is related to community standard, and the community standard in San Francisco might be significantly different than the community standard in Watson. So, right.
There's a
but
pro
what I'm
and a
saying-
con to everything is what you're saying.
Right, so
Yeah.
that's typically why, you know, the Middle District of Louisiana has typically been conservative, except we've had, I don't think there's been an appointment under the last administration, so we tend to have a fairly liberal U.S. attorney within the Middle District of Louisiana. So we don't always have representation at the federal level with respect to the attorney that necessarily coincides with the community standard or our community as it exists. So, you know, I mean, I don't want to say we're at a loss, but we are heavily dependent upon some individuals with law backgrounds and law degrees to help us.
Kind of at an impasse, basically.
Kind of help us through this
Yeah,
matter. But
that'd be a good word.
and not to kind of kick the can down the road, we really need to move on this timely, because technically, when you listen to the ADA over there, if a lot of this stuff's not enforceable, then we might as well not have it on the books. So we're trying to address or get as much information as we can to try to move forward and draft some legislation or ordinance that would be enforceable, that would at least give us something to restrict, you know, access into our community. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And look, I think that I'm not trying to discount the input from the community. I think what the members of the council or the 4 members of this committee probably mirror most of your concerns, not all, but most of your concerns. And in given that situation, we're trying to write as a restrictive ordinance as we can that will pass muster if it's challenged. So, I mean, I think we're all on the same side.
I was just trying to figure if we should follow the state or not. It's hard to do when you don't have a document with the state's law or the state's ordinance to look at. You
You
know,
can,
got it right here.
you can go Louisiana, if you're on the internet, you can go Louisiana State Legislature, which is www.legis.la.gov. And then you could type in revised statute 14:106. It gives you the state ordinance. It gives you the state revised statute and what their definition is. But at the same time,
But it was revised in.
no,
Yeah.
the revised part's here. I mean, the part that's revised is here. The problem is it's not been challenged, so we don't know whether it's any more
From reading
constitutional.
through this, I don't think
It's
it's much
just
more
it's
enforceable
important
than
to
what
point
we
out, too,
have.
is that I believe sooner than later, we're gonna have some zoning in place. If we have zoning in place, that's an avenue to where you can just lock it down.
Yeah,
Right.
gotta be.
This
in
discussion's
this-
over.
Yeah.
You know, it's a done deal.
Don't we have a
each
discussion
county-
Thursday night on that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's that?
I think the zoning thing would be the best.
Well,
Probably
absolutely,
is.
and believe me, I've been working on that for about,
How many times over the
5 years
past, over the
now.
past 5 years, I can probably
Yeah.
count on, it's probably at least a dozen times where something was happening.
Oh, at least
And
a
if we
dozen.
had zoning in place, we could have stopped it. But without it, it's a wild, wild west.
You're
And
appeasing
they're
them,
gonna
Mike.
do whatever you want.
Without it.
well, it's
We're getting there, it's coming.
It's coming. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm Mike Roy. I live at 34135 Walker Road North. I've been in Livingston Parish for about 30 years. I have a business here, about 30 employees. And started a small business, 2 couples. And I think the quality of life is really going to suffer under these kind of establishments coming to Livingston Parish, and everyone I've spoken to feels the same. But my question is, you know, all the talk about the law and what the law says. Well, the law is made every day, and the law is interpreted, and the law is judged, and y'all's job is to make the law. And this law from 2007 is not vague, it's very clear. I was able to read it in one pass and understand it. And whether it's enforceable or not, we don't know, and you don't know. You've admitted you don't know.
I mean, but
You have
ADA
input from one attorney.
No, he's an assistant district attorney,
Right.
not just an attorney, so you've
We
got to
could
put
just
some
leave
weight
it
on
exactly
that.
like
But-
it is.
I mean, we can
Let somebody
leave
challenge.
it just like it is. I mean, we could, but, and then if we get challenged,
They're gonna.
Well,
throw it out.
Karen Crow, the city of Karen Crow just passed a law and ran one of these type businesses out of the city.
That's not what happened.
You can tell us.
You can-
we wanna know.
I mean,
And that's a city too, that's not.
well, yeah, and it's probably zoned, which
Yep.
means they probably just made a zoning designation for that type of business and then didn't zone anything in their city that
But the
designation.
But the reason there's a state law is to be an umbrella for what you can and cannot do. It's not gonna spell out every detail. They leave that to lower bodies and municipalities to make specific laws for that community. That's the whole purpose of a council and the whole purpose of a parish government. So,
I
you
guess
know-
my question, Mike, I'm sorry. So should we just ignore what the assistant district attorney, the man who would be, and I'm not being combative here, but what you're asking me to do is just ignore what he's saying and just roll the dice, right?
no, I'm not asking for that. I'm asking that you as a council do more research into what options you have
Well,
besides.
that's what we're willing, yeah, we
you
want
know.
to do that, yeah, for sure.
And we till we get back from our attorney, and look, I get it, you don't
But-
take one guy's advice.
I mean, we were here last week, and we thought the attorney was gonna come with information, we would know state law, we would know all this,
Yeah, we
and here we are just talking about the same thing.
Right? And look, I understand, and
We get left at this level quite often.
I mean, not to take a page from Mr. Tower's book here, but I believe we're on the same side here. I would love to leave it just like it is. And if that is the consensus, I'll do that. But I think that considering what we know now, that would be foolish.
It would be ill-advised, for
Yeah,
sure.
And because having listened to Mr. Cascio, and I mean, you look.
He didn't beat around the
And
bush
he did-
either.
he
He just
was-
said, no,
and-
it can't happen.
And he just said, I would not defend this. If
He wouldn't
if they would have come to me, they would have issued, they would have pressed it. It came to him eventually, or somebody at the
Somebody,
21st.
yeah.
And he said, I looked at this and said, and that's scary to me. That means I have to do something with this law.
It's scary to me too, that
I mean,
the
it's-
district attorney says he won't enforce laws of the parish.
Well,
Well, because they've been overruled, that's
Well,
why.
it's,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's, we
You know,
gotta go by law.
You got
of
one
land.
case you cited that went to the Supreme Court,
I don't know.
one case.
No, there's actually three under Chris's, there was three that created, those three cases created that three-prong approach that the Supreme Court utilizes. I'm not a legal scholar. I'm just saying that those three cases that, as they were created, Miller being the primary one, created the three-pronged approach that you had to meet. That's based on that email and from a legal, I don't know what they're called, but it's kind of like they synopsis, they do a synopsis of laws and they have a more detailed thing later on. I mean, that was just the email I read. So, I mean,
It just disenfranchises people that
What-
move to Livingston Parish because it's a conservative parish and because they have good schools, they got good churches, it's a prosperous parish. We came out of a great flood that was unheard of and we're building back up. And it's not because of these kind of establishments that we're doing it.
I agree.
So we need to, rally together and see. I understand y'all are trying to figure out what you can do. I understand that. But I'm here to help too. I come from a legal family, and my brother's a constitutional attorney, and I'm going to be talking to him.
And look, I don't know, you probably have my number. If you don't, I'll get it for you. Just, I mean, I'm welcome.
If you come
I'm
up with
open to
something,
input.
yeah.
I mean, but, ultimately, we have to come up with something that's enforceable. And,
Right.
and what I want, as strong as possible. That's just me.
Well, I appreciate y'all's work on it, and I believe y'all are trying to do the right thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. I'm Johnny Goldman. I live up north of Walker, Bostwick Road, and just a taxpayer, frustrated by a lot of the government bureaucracy and so forth. And I hadn't heard anybody yet in the government that said, boy, this is a breeze. I should have done it earlier. So I sympathize with some of the things you face. But then again, there's a little phrase that caught my attention a number of years ago. It says, we the people. And really, somebody else a few years later said, all government is local. And so we, the people, have a voice in what kind of community we want to see developed. And I've heard several folks sound like they're opposed to this type of a business moving in to our community. Is that on the record a position of the folks
I
here?
can tell you from I can speak for me.
Yes.
I absolutely am against it.
Yes, sir.
That's
I
me.
appreciate it.
I have a problem with people telling people what they can do in their own homes.
I agree.
Yeah.
We're in a free country, and
I'm a libertarian. I agree with you.
we're in a tough spot when
Right.
we feel that way because
Right.
you want to restrict some things that we deem to be harmful to minors and others, while also saying you can't do at your house in your bedroom what you want to do.
And that's why this
It's
step
hard.
is very important.
It's very,
Is to
very-
sit and look at it.
And as much as I hate to say,
And
Scooter's right. I mean, I believe that what you do in your own home, as long as it's not,
Right.
As long as it
over
doesn't-
the top,
Right.
We're talking about with minors and
Minors,
stuff like
yeah,
that. I mean,
I don't
and
think
that's
that's, I don't,
illegal, whether it be an obscenity law or any other law.
right. We're talking about community.
yes.
Community.
So if something private is not
But
community.
Right.
I want to clarify because everything I say is going to be posted and put on the internet and,
Yeah, you're the chairman.
yeah, so to be very clear, I do think that people should be able to do what they want with in the privacy of the home within the
A scope,
context of,
right.
a scope of just
Yeah.
being.
As long as it's
As a
not
whole,
going out and
you
affecting other
wanted to get me on
people.
the record. I'm not against any person opening a private business that doesn't harm anyone else.
Right.
Okay.
And so this, what it's called, Me Too, and several movements that keep
Sure.
popping up, the things, and I don't know anything about this business. I know the nature of it. I mean, I've heard the nature of it. They'd have to explain it to me. But
Sure.
what I'm saying is, I understand it's something that's quite contrary to the norms of our community. And things change. You know, I'm not saying you can't ever
Community
change.
standards are
But what
always fluid.
I think
Yeah.
what we're observing, anybody, there's a few gray hairs up there, or hairs missing.
Yeah.
It's legal.
We've seen a lot of changes in our life.
Yes.
And I think many of the older folks feel like those changes are not for the betterment of our nation.
I understand.
It's threatening the very foundation of our nation. And that, I think, to do anything about it, we can sit back and read about it, let's do it on the radio or TV, or we can get
Speak
involved
up.
and
Yep.
take a stand and say, hey, I know it's a football game. You got rules, you play by the football game. If you don't like the rules, you can try to get the rules changed. Sound like there's some discussion about the rules. One thing I noticed, you talk about Supreme Court rulings and all, you notice how many times that's 5-4? These are the elite
'Cause that's how our
jurists
country
of our
is,
country.
you know?
And they can't agree among themselves.
Right.
So I understand there's been a lot of hoorah about some of these last appointees to the Supreme Court. A lot of folks are shaking in their boots about what way the
Really
nation might go.
Didn't
So I guess to some degree, all we can do is do our part, and then it's in the good Lord's
Local.
hands.
Yeah.
Right. So each of us only can do our part. The attorney, whoever, and I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the faces and the characters, but if I'm going to a doctor, and the doctor don't tell me something along the lines of what I want to hear, I go to a different doctor. And if I go to a lawyer and the lawyer says I can't do that, then I hunt for one that can. So the question would be, being that the Supreme Court can be divided 5-4, why do we have lawyers that say, where were they when this was written?
Oh, they wasn't born yet.
Well, look, I understand your position, and that's why we made the statement earlier about reaching out, because the way the Home Rule Charter is established,
I'm sorry, I missed that last phrase.
the way the Home Rule Charter is established, the district attorney provides us our attorney.
Yes, sir.
So we don't have the option of going and asking for.
And where does he
new
come
or-
from?
He's elected.
Ah,
Okay, but I mean, I'm just.
okay,
telling you,
no, that's important.
But ultimately, that's why we kind of reached out to, you know, if you've got an attorney that's willing to help us, we're definitely willing to accept what other.
But our district attorney currently says this is unenforceable.
No, our district attorney appointed a parish attorney.
Assistant district attorney.
And
So he's acting on his behalf.
And the parish attorney has said it was unconstitutional.
Okay,
The
which
day-
would represent the district
Which
attorney. right?
represents,
Okay.
and the, and
You would
the, and
think.
the, and the day that we had this discussion, a ADA was filling in for the parish attorney at the designation of the parish attorney. And he just made the comment that based on the Supreme Court rulings, if a citation or misdemeanor summons or arrest was made under this ordinance, that he would not, he would not prosecute.
So did he specify the phrase that was causing the problem?
I think the thing is, when we talked, that we were talking specifically about one type of business. And he basically said, you know, our ordinance outlaws some of the things that they were gonna sell. And he felt that based on the Supreme Court rulings, that it was illegal. You know, I mean, not illegal, but it was not enforceable for our ordinance to outlaw those things because it didn't meet the approach that the Supreme Court said you had to determine it to be obscene. So, look, all I can do is listen to what an attorney tells me. And so that's why I'm telling you that if you've got an attorney of a different mindset, that has a different conservative approach or whatever, then we're definitely interested in listening to what they have to say. And if they're willing to help us draft this, then we definitely trying to put the most restrictive ordinance we can. But we at the
That
same
can be
time need some help, because I don't know what the standard, I mean.
But the first step, wouldn't it be kind of like somebody building a house? My son builds houses.
Yeah.
And the first thing he does is he wants to know what kind of house he wants built, to get the details. So as your vision for our parish, does it include these establishments throughout our parish?
It doesn't include them, however, However, I'm gonna quantify, however, if we can't write an ordinance that will withstand scrutiny, and
But we can do that, right?
right, well,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
what, I mean, we've been told that maybe we can, and we've been told that we can't, so we're trying to find what can,
I guess the reason folks are out this evening is they have a stand on one side or the other of the issue, and they would like their side to win.
right.
And so my concern at this point would be with this body that takes care of the local business, where do y'all stand on it? Is it a divided house? Is some
No,
for and some against?
I
or-
think we're pretty, except for maybe one person, I think that we're all in favor of having as restrictive ordinance as we can that will withstand.
Would it be any different? I know y'all have been at this a while, so forgive me if I'm step over the line a little bit, but with our attorney, if we was one of those empty lots there on South Walker next to Walmart or someplace, there's gonna put a adult strip joint, would that be something that?
Well,
No, I'll
the
give
city
you-
of Walker's got zoning, so it probably wouldn't apply.
It
But-
would not.
Okay, how about just outside?
Well, I mean, yeah, under the current.
How about where these
Like,
folks are
let's say
located?
I represent the Watson area, so
Yes.
it's just a community, there's no city ordinances,
Right.
there's no zoning. So if you consider that typically a strip club sells alcohol, which would require an alcohol permit, and the distance on alcohol permit at the parish level is 500 feet, Ms. White, am I correct? 300 at state, 500. So in essence, you could build in Watson a strip club 500 feet from a church, and under the current situation that exists, probably not
Make it
stop.
open.
Okay, so the community standards, and like I said, I'm not a lawyer by any means, as y'all
Well-
agree you're not either. So I'm just kind of an understanding. So the community standards have to be specified legally, very
Well, the
specifically. It's not a matter of this violates community
The
standards.
community standard, as I understand it, can't be about a strip club. The community standard can be about what technically is obscene within a strip club. And so it's,
And
you gotta meet these definitions, and then if any of those definitions of obscenity.
So back to the football game and the rules, who determines that?
Well, right now, the Supreme Court has determined what is and is not obscene.
Okay.
So
and
we're
then
trying to write an ordinance within
Many
those.
lawyers are well employed debating that, right?
I
No, but it
guess.
all comes down to arguing about what does that really mean? What is the meaning of is?
Right, so in essence, well, I guess what we're looking for is that the lawyers that we have had give us recommendations that we have access to that are on the parish payroll have basically said, your ordinance is not enforceable. They have not, though, come to us and identified what portions are.
That's what we need.
What is is our definition of obscenity the problem and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for guidance on what portion is not constitutional, and then how we can fix
So
that in
at
such a manner that we create an ordinance that is enforceable.
So at this point, your goal is to do what?
My goal is to,
I mean, as a council.
I would say, if we could keep the ordinance as close to what it is right now in an enforceable manner, change the least amount to make it enforceable, and maybe add a few things that aren't addressed in here
If
to
they're
make them
enforceable,
stricter.
yep.
And if it's enforceable, that's my.
Well, that would be the simplest
You know.
way to do it without doing away with our ordinance
Yeah.
completely.
But, we have to we have to have the attorney look at it and go, this isn't enforceable. Okay, well, let's figure out a way to.
Okay, and so the only way to get a different attorney's opinion is to get a different attorney, right?
Right.
I mean, so that's part of the problem.
Right,
Okay.
so
All
let's say for example, a novelty shop sells a particular item that according to our ordinance is obscene. However, under the Supreme Court test, that item is not obscene. Then what we have to do,
I'm sorry. Why isn't it obscene according to the Supreme Court?
because it technically doesn't violate what they have determined is a three-pronged approach that, we're looking at we're looking at a little piece of equipment and say it is not artistic or it's not whatever, And
So I need to go back and do my homework on that part.
Right,
That's where the problem is.
So in essence, you know, the definition is, what is the definition of obscene? You know, our ordinance is, I say, and I want to say vague, I think vague is the wrong term. I think our ordinance is overly,
Overstep.
what they're telling us is overly broad. That it goes into areas that the Supreme Court has said are not obscene. So in essence, we need to find a definition of obscene that meets the standard within that will withstand, you know, scrutiny by a higher court. And then apply those new definitions to what we want or what we will allow within our community. At the same time, and Tracy's right, if we had zoning right now, we could create a zoning level of, you know, this is the type of zoning you have to have for this type of establishment, and then nothing there to be zoned that, in essence, they couldn't open. So, I mean, there are ways to do it. We just don't have the ability at this point in time to move that direction.
You said you came through the school of hard knocks. I went through that too. That's all I have but I thought I was the most naive, but I'm not the only naive one here, in that the words keep changing, the definitions keep changing. That's why I think makes this important. As we watch the moral decay saturate our country and our standards change, there was a time where the life of innocent babies was very important and were defended across our country. And in this 5-4 decision you're talking about, the Supreme Court ruled that, oh no, we were wrong. And that fundamental belief in innocent life and this defense.
Kill all you want.
Right. And so that pillar, if you will, of our society was eroded. Now more recently, we see some civil unions become marriage where man and woman throughout the history of our nation and before.
Yep.
And so that was a word that, you know, marriage meant something. Nobody ever thought that you could pervert it to the point where you make it between the same sex. But yet that's where we are. And now that when somebody says a statement, sound like I did, you can expect all kind of harassment and threats. And I know we're used to, like you say, it was civil communication. You discuss the problem, try to come out with something that would benefit the community as well as the concerned parties, but we're letting that erode. And that's why I say, if we the people, I believe this place could have been packed if the word was out a little bit more. And so that's why I think it's important that we know where the council coming from, so that if y'all fighting it and you got a goal and you're gonna work towards it until you get it done. And this my son, in building those houses, especially this thing, price of lumber and everything, to me, that's some pretty big problems. We say, hey, we're gonna get it done. It's a problem, but we're gonna work through it. We're gonna get it done. So I think that's what I'm hearing. And I kind of want to know before we go home and go relax, that our elected representatives have a goal in mind. They're working that direction. And it's not just a matter of trying to appease everybody and empty the room, so we don't have to deal with the contentiousness.
I can tell you, if we have zoning before the end of the year, which is lofty, because it's something we've been working on.
Oh yeah, I've heard it repeated.
You know, there won't be one area zoned in my district that will allow this.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Now,
that's me.
Again, Mr. Libertarian here on the left, I have some problems with that, but I have a bigger problem with the moral issue of the standards of the community being violated and saying, well, there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, the problem is that we the people is all the people. I've got people that have come to my business and have called me and said, I hope you're on the side of letting this business open.
And did they say why?
Yeah, because they said, you should not restrict what legal adults should be able to buy or see.
Do we still restrict heroin?
Well,
yeah, I mean,
we do.
Look. How about which side of the road we drive on?
And I get that there's a line.
Yeah, right.
There's always a line.
That's what this is about, is where's that line?
You know, you talked about the libertarian in you has a problem. So let's just look at a whole basic concept of what's going on in our country right now.
That could go away.
Is that you can have a fairly conservative Democratic senator from the state of West Virginia that might be more conservative than some Republican senators or elected officials from other areas. And you can have a socialist, you know, from Vermont, you know,
right.
Yet they can come together for their cause, so to speak. Yet, when you get on the conservative side of the aisle, and you talked about the abortion issue
Right,
earlier.
yes. I'm not insulted by being
I mean, no,
conservative.
I mean.
Yes, sir, I
you-
accept
you
that.
talked about that particular issue.
Right.
If a conservative candidate had a differing opinion on abortion, there is a good chance that there is a whole section of conservatives within the country that would not support that individual because of one
Right.
particular view.
I agree.
And so sometimes I think we need to not micromanage certain candidates. We need to look for people that defend the republic and defend our way of life and stick together along those lines.
I agree 100%. And my perspective on it is the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Right.
If we don't defend life, then what right can be more
Oh, and look,
important than
and
that?
I just use that as
Yes, sir, I understand.
I just
I
use that
understand,
as an
but
example because it's a polarizing
I
subject
understand
within
that.
our country.
Right.
But what I'm telling you is sometimes we'll micromanage a conservative candidate and end up beating that person to death
Getting
and
somebody that's horrible.
allowing a different person to be elected.
I agree.
And so sometimes I think we need to maybe put aside certain,
Well,
you know, I mean, I
well,
know what you're saying.
I
but I mean-
and I appreciate what you're saying. I believe we should be able to discuss things civilly, but we've got to keep our priorities straight, and my priorities may be a little bit different from somebody else's, but I've got to be true to my convictions, and I think that's fundamental, and I think that's why we're here. I heard the little children mentioned several times,
Yeah.
and parents have to make, contrary to the liberal wing, as I understand it, parents need to make those decisions for children, not wait for them to get big enough to do their own decisions.
Right.
So that we do teach them, and that's where your umbrella of responsibility is to help set those standards in the way of life for Livingston Parish that we'd be proud of, to go right to the kin folks off in other states and say, you ought to come see what we have. And that, we've had that for a number of years, and we hate to see it erode. I go way back to that, boy, I laugh at that one. Probably some of the folks can remember when it was a dry parish. Well, we lost Disneyland because it was a dry parish.
Right?
But money
That's
didn't
the-
answer to everything.
That's
In fact,
the folklore anyway.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
Look,
I was there
I can tell
to
you,
hear the
dry
folklore.
as an elected official, you know, a lot of times you have to, well, you should always overlook how you personally feel about something and kind of look at what is best or what is.
Well,
what the
hopefully
best
you wouldn't feel
approach-
contrary to what's
No, well,
best.
but at other times sometimes you just got to put your feet down and say, this is where I'm at, you know?
Yeah, it's in what
And,
instance,
but
man,
I
it's
think-
all
with
so
you.
hard.
You
See,
know,
I suspect through your eyes, you try to do what's best each time, just as I suspect through these folks' eyes, they're trying to do what they think is best. It's just our values apparently are
And
different.
look, and I respect that. It just, at some point, you know, I've seen the parish change.
Amen.
And this is why I got into government, you know, one of the reasons.
You know,
So
you did.
know, you can stand and make a difference in your community.
Yes, sir.
And you know, I'm clear on how I feel, you know, but ultimately it is a vote of the council. But first we need to come down to, you know,
But,
get what we can.
I
Get the
think it is
definition.
important in that we have confidence that the parish council has a vision for the parish that isn't just maybe what's easiest, but what they feel is best.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes that may not be easy, and it may be a couple bumps in the road, but if we set our mind to doing what's right, at least you give it a good shot and fight hard and lose, at least you try. But if we just go along with the breeze, as so often is the case, well, hey, how many people's on this side and how many people's on that side? We need to go a little bit more fundamental, is what's being done, what's good for our children.
We're gonna.
I
Right,
thought the worst
okay,
thing
thank you
we've
for your
got to
time.
deal with roads and drainage, you know, so this is, different.
Good evening.
Evening.
It's been a long one. I'm Richard Blue. My address is 13968 Idell Lane in Walker, Louisiana. Just want to say something real quick. First of all, I've been watching your videos from the last couple of meetings that you have. I just want to say thank you. Y'all have worked hard in trying to do what is best for Livingston Parish. And I'm going to tell you, I've spent the last 25 years writing more policy than anything, and it's much easier to stand on this side of the bench than to sit up there where you guys are.
Yes, sir.
So that's why I say thank you. And also, y'all not trying to write policy, you're trying to write law. And I appreciate the hard work that you're doing. And you've heard, there's nothing new. I can't add anything to what anybody else has already said, but just say thank you very much for your due diligent work in representing Livingston Parish. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dr.
I
Blue.
appreciate that, thank you.
Anything else? You guys got it?
I don't know, we're just waiting. Is everybody done? Everybody done? Is our turn?
Yeah.
All right. I'm Kayla Lee, Megan Williams. First of all, thank y'all for repeating yourselves 30,000 times over the last few weeks. I know that's probably exhausting. We have a few things, and I think that maybe the problem is that these men, I don't see any women, I only see men, maybe they just don't understand what this store does. I know that you admitted you don't know what we do. To give you an idea, yesterday we had a woman came in, her husband has prostate cancer. They have not been able to be together intimately. We have products that help her and her husband stay together. While it has a beautiful, fun little bubble over it, there's actually things behind the scenes that are needed. You have women who have had hysterectomies. They need things that we sell. It's not perverted, and I really hate how children
we don't
are
like being
brought
put
this.
in that criminal category.
We feel like this is making us look like criminals, and we're not. Children are not allowed. I don't know, has anybody rode past the store since we've opened?
Yep.
Can you see into the store?
Absolutely
At all.
not.
Nothing.
Even when you stand up to the glass and put your face like this
can't
on the
see.
glass, you cannot see in, period. And we are in a development where it's nothing but 18, 21 and up.
And it's 18 to get in.
And IDs are checked.
And another thing is, we hear people who are here about recovery. So are we gonna fight alcohol as well? Why is the
There's
sex
bars,
addiction being
there's
hit,
bars.
but not alcohol? There's a lot of recovering alcoholics, but they're not being targeted. We're not here to hurt the community. I'm not gonna go on record and say how much sales we made in the last few days, but I will say that Livingston Parish is gonna be very happy with the taxes we put back into the community. And while we have a few people here, we have had hundreds show up that are very happy about the establishments. So I also want to address the children once again. Why are they being brought up? Why are the children being
Criminals
brought
are
up?
going to criminal no matter what.
Children are
They
not
do
allowed
not
in our
have to
community.
come into our establishment and
No.
buy the products that we have to be criminals. They can pick up any object within reach and criminalize with it, period.
Yep. And these things are bought on Amazon.
They are also sold in Walmart and in Walgreens, where I'm sure all of y'all pick up y'all's prescriptions.
Yes. So I don't understand why.
So why would someone buy it from you instead of Walmart?
Does it matter where they buy it from?
Hey,
Ask them.
you need to address us.
I don't know. I don't know why they would purchase it from us. Maybe because education-wise, a Walmart worker may not know the things that we know about products.
They like to shop local as well. Local.
Yeah, almost every person that has come in has said, we'd rather shop local than anywhere else.
And we have hired 2 Livingston Parish residents as well. So we have employed 2 more people from Livingston Parish.
And plan on employing more.
Our shirts, locally made. Anything that we can buy local in Livingston Parish, we're doing and reselling it. We're doing everything we can to help the community. This is not about heroin. This is not about any
Strip
kind of
clubs.
addiction. We have nothing to do with strip clubs. There are no naked people walking around
Our
shop.
bathroom is not even open to the public.
So I just think that maybe there's a lack of education there about what we do. And y'all are more than welcome, and I mean this sincerely from the bottom of my heart, to come in and see what we do. Come talk to us, come see what we do. We're not doing anything to harm the community, I promise.
So you want people to
Also,
come see
we
and
do
then
not
make their
sell,
decision then?
we do
Yes,
not sell
please.
live action.
We
do
sell
not
no
sell
DVDs,
live action
no
DVDs.
magazines.
We do not condone live action
No.
DVDs. What is done in a bedroom is between a woman and a man.
Yes.
You do not need to come in our store and buy a video of people doing something in private.
When you have
We are
this,
against
if
that.
you want that.
We do not agree with that.
Yeah.
We are simply helping married couples. Consenting couples stay together in a healthy way.
That's it.
If you have a problem with sex, come into our store. We can help you stay out of the community and keep it within your home. What you can do in your home is up to you. We are not condoning anything to do with minors or criminalization.
I don't
in
understand
any
that
way.
part at all. Why
I don't
minors-
understand why we
minors are
keep
coming
getting
up.
thrown into that
I
category.
think because it's in our ordinance, and that's what it mainly talks about in all the definitions, is what
Child
about
pornography needs to be put in its own category, period, away from obscene
minors.
objects.
I think that's part of the thing the
Yeah.
ADA was talking about, that, you know, that,
That's totally different. We
That's
had
a
nothing
no.
to
It's
do
two
with
different
That's a
things.
minors.
no.
It's two different
Right.
things.
yeah,
Right.
okay.
So, thank y'all.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
y'all for coming.
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
I gotta add one more thing. One more thing. This, or everything that we're talking about here, this is just one aspect of it. This thing is much larger, and that's why other things have been brought up along with it that has nothing to do with the new business in the area. What we need to do is do things that would enhance the continued good life that we have, the high quality of life that we have, that have drawn thousands of people to leave where they were and move here, is the good quality of life that we've had for years. We need to maintain that, and there are other things that are out there that are far beyond this that we need to protect against. And so we appreciate the hard work that you're doing, and thank you for your due diligence. God bless, man.
Thank you. All right. All right, item 4, other business? You guys anything?
Okay, so y'all remember the work on Livingston Parish Ordinance 21-04, where the notification between the utility, we added communication companies and their
Yes.
subcontractors. So, as we worked on this, there was not a lot of input from Homeland Security. We knew that Homeland Security got notified, but they never shared their notification. So, in communication,
You read all that,
after our work, and this is kind of why this thing has been deferred week after week after week of the public hearing. There was a meeting the other day between Homeland Security, some utility companies, the planning department, Public Works, administration, and there are some modifications to the ordinance we worked on. We'll go over those today. We're gonna have a public input Thursday night. We're gonna amend the ordinance as it was introduced, and then we're gonna try to adopt it as amended. And these are what the amendments are gonna be. Where it says communications company and subcontractors, that was part of the original ordinance that we added. Except where it says required to notify it's gonna be the Livingston Parish Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. And it'll talk about, it references section 1827 out of the safety regulations, which the previous council adopted in April. The previous council adopted, I don't know when, this is a revised copy that was, actually came out yesterday. Because there was some amendments to offset this ordinance, to go along with this ordinance. In writing, a minimum of 3 parish business days prior to entering any parish right of way, Written notification shall include all information required for emergency operation plan outlined in this booklet. And so then where what we had wanted to notify, all that'll be stricken because it's already in the booklet what is required.
Understood.
Okay, then we,
Go ahead, I'll show you where it is. Should say utilities.
oh, okay, all right, we'll be sure that's corrected before it's over. Public or private utilizes, we're gonna make it. Yeah. Well, no, the police jury actually adopted it in 90. So
Oh,
this
yes,
was
right.
adopted
I
by
got
the
you.
police jury and it's being modified by the council. And then B, under emergency, we're gonna go back to notify, the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness as outlined within the booklet. And notification of emergency work shall include, no, we're striking all that. The notification process in emergency will be as outlined in here.
Essentially, this right here is a lot more detailed.
This is gonna be a lot
So
more
you strike-
detailed.
You strike these specific things.
We'll
and you-
strike them,
and you know- and
we're
you
actually gonna,
reference this.
yeah, we're actually gonna strike the
Gotcha.
line that says notification of emergency work shall include all information listed below. All B is gonna say is that you are responsible for notifying within these guidelines.
Yep.
So, and then of course, all the red stuff on the back is stricken from earlier. So, it would be nice if we could get,
This has to be amended by ordinance as well, so there would be two separate ordinances.
okay, so we can't introduce that ordinance until, so this book that you see on April 5th will have to be introduced as being accepted by ordinance on the meeting of.
So we'll have to
the
defer
20
this.
Well, we can move forward with
Oh, yeah.
accepting this, but we've got to
Once we do
introduce,
this.
we can introduce this on the 22nd, and then we can have the public hearing the following in
So
May.
we could
We can
pass that
we
in
can-
lieu of this coming through.
Right, we can
I got you.
pass this Thursday night with
Gotcha.
these changes. Then we can introduce this the following meeting by ordinance, and then, so,
Yeah.
that's where we're gonna be Thursday night. So when you see changes to something that we worked on, that's why it exists.
All right.
All right?
Anything else? Tom? No? I mean, good?
Well, I don't think we need to do anything. We know what we're gonna do, so we're gonna amend it at the meeting after the public hearing, and then we'll adopt it as amended.
We don't have to make any motions on.
Motion to adjourn?
Wait a second.
Do you want a recommendation coming out of the?
Well, I think for us to do it.
Motion to amend at the introduction, as it was introduced to as it is written now.
Right.
Motion.
Okay, we got a motion by, second,
Motion by you.
second by me.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Talbot. All against? So ordered.
Okay, so now because we've got a recommendation coming out here, we can hear it. Okay, so we're good. Yeah, we're good. Wait a second, can we make a motion to introduce this
It's not.
Thursday night?
No, because you'd have, well, we could.
Yeah, we can introduce
We
it.
can introduce it
Yeah,
as
let's do that.
So I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance to accept this Thursday night, and then we can theoretically hear it, have a public hearing on the 22nd.
Yeah.
Second by Mr. Harris. Any against? So ordered.
Okay.
All right.
Motion.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. King, second. Second by Mr. Harris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.